Tonight, it's official. The October referendum is off. A charge of murder reduced in the Rockhampton Magistrates Court.
And in sport, the Wesley Hall Cup again goes to Frenchville.
Good evening. A Rockhampton magistrate has refused to commit a teenager to trial for murdering a 55-year-old vagrant. However, 18-year-old Malcolm Fraser will face a jury on a lesser charge.
55-year-old Jack Wardell was bashed outside Rockhampton's St Vincent de Paul's hostel on May the 1st this year. Earlier evidence at the committal hearing identified 18-year-old Malcolm Fraser as the attacker. Wardell was taken to hospital in a critical condition but died a day later. In court today, a government pathologist identified the cause of death as internal bleeding from an artery at the base of the brain. The burst artery, says Dr. Charles Naylor, could have been caused by a blow to the head.
For a murder charge to stick under law, intention to kill must be proven. At the close of proceedings today, Defence Counsel Brian Harrison argued there's no evidence to prove intent. The magistrate agreed, refusing to commit Fraser on murder, but instead entering a manslaughter charge.
Fraser hasn't entered a plea but has been granted bail under strict supervision until the September 25th Supreme Court sittings.
Meanwhile, a rampaging Etna Creek prisoner who smashed windows and cells on Monday will spend an extra 6 months in jail on top of his existing 3-year sentence. 23-year-old Lindsay Gordon-Dallin pleaded guilty to 3 willful destruction charges in the Rockhampton Magistrates Court today.
This is the damage done to the mess and recreation halls at Etna Creek Prison on Monday. Lindsay Dallin used broom handles to smash more than 60 windows. A riot was avoided when other prisoners were evacuated from the area. In court today, Dallin's counsel blamed his client's behaviour on pressure caused by difficulties in adjusting to prison life and bad relations with other inmates. On the morning of his outburst, Dallin's request to be moved to a different cell away from those inmates had been refused.
Describing the prisoner's rampage as intolerable, Magistrate Ken Lynn said Dallin had tried to use standover tactics to force the prison to give in to his demand to change cells. Saying the prisoner needs help, Mr Lynn ordered psychiatric assessment on top of the 6-month sentence, which will be added to Dallin's existing term, due to end in September next year.
Dallin's also been ordered to pay more than $2,000 for repairs, in default 3 months.
Questions remain after the federal government's release of its blueprint for an AIDS strategy over the next 4 years. The government has left open an option to consider syringe distribution, a prospect which alarms the Rockhampton Correctional Centre.
In releasing the white paper on AIDS yesterday, Federal Health Minister Neil Blewett has made it clear he hopes in Australia to avoid the American experience, where AIDS is recognised as the biggest killer of women under 30. Government policy will make AIDS testing mandatory for a number of groups: migrants coming into the country, prisoners on the way out of jail, sexual offenders if the victim requests, and anybody else suspected of having the virus. Bill Irvine of the Rockhampton Correctional Centre says the centre's been testing prisoners for AIDS for nearly 2 years without any positive results. Any prisoners found to have the virus are dispatched to a special AIDS unit in Brisbane. Mr Irvine is happy with the system as it is and would strongly oppose any moves to make condoms or needles available in prisons.
Here, as far as drugs and as far as sexual assaults and as such, prisoners at this institution are classified, well classified, and they're housed in certain areas where, if we do feel that somebody has those tendencies, we'll isolate them into an area where we know these things wouldn't happen. As far as drugs, all prisoners going in and out of the institution are searched. We have metal detectors, we have all sorts of electronics, and we certainly do not tolerate drugs in the prison, and the same with sexual assaults or any sexual natures. Certainly wouldn't happen in this institution. We wouldn't be happy to see it here, that's for sure.
The government is injecting $318 million into the 4-year AIDS strategy. Most of that will be spent on educational programs.
After the break tonight, Bat Mania is about to strike. Warned the federal government, if it continues with its high interest rate policies, it will totally ruin the Australian building industry. The warning comes following the release of figures showing a huge fall in the number of housing loan approvals in Australia.
On the heels of the federal budget, the figures on home loan approvals spell bad news for the federal government. They show the number of home loan approvals between May and June this year dropped by 19.2%. But even more markedly, the number of loans in June, compared to the same month last year, were down a whopping 47%. And instead of showing signs of getting better, the Housing Industry Association warns things look like getting worse, particularly if interest rates go even higher.
That would be a devastating outcome for the industry and certainly would not be justified whatever on the basis of demand conditions in the housing market, which are at virtually an all-time low.
The association warns if government policy on interest rates doesn't change, the Australian building industry could hit its hardest time in many years, leading to disastrous results.
Well, already we've seen some builders laying off salaried staff, and that's also been taking place in the manufacturing and supply sector of the industry. I'm afraid that situation is going to get worse, and a lot of people are going to lose their jobs.
The association says the latest figures show once and for all the federal government's home ownership policies are now in tatters.
Plans for the Primary Industries exhibition in Billawheeler are well underway, but the organisers say they need $3 million to fund the first stages of the 5-stage development.
Billions got to see the silo in the city when it was at Expo 88. It's hoped just as many will when it becomes the central feature of the grand Primary Industries exhibition planned for Billawheeler. To date, almost $1 million has been pledged from the community to get the project underway. Another $1 million is being sought from the state government. Cabinet is understood to be considering. A September decision is likely. But support and sponsorship from primary industries bodies is also being sought. An 8.6 hectare site has been set aside. Stages 1 and 2 will be a rest stop and the silo. 3, 4 and 5, a theatre, mining pavilion and cottage industries pavilion.
It's on again, the annual Rockhampton musical Eisteddfod, now in its 54th year.
The Rockhampton Eisteddfod has attracted over 5,000 children to compete in the 11-day event. There are 3,128 events at the Eisteddfod and only 6 adjudicators judging dance, vocal, speech, instrumental and literary. The Eisteddfod will culminate in a gala concert to be held September the 9th. Items to be performed will be chosen by the adjudicators. St Joseph's Hall, the Municipal Theatre and the Pilbeam are the venues to see a variety of performances and performers from under 8 to 18 years of age. Encouragement, most promising talent and highest marks are some of the awards to be received. Today at the Pilbeam, under 8, 10 and 12-year-olds presented piano, woodwind and brass pieces.
Today's axing of the October 14 referendum by Premier Micah Hearn has been welcomed with open arms by Central Queensland National Party members. They have labelled the poll to extend the life of Parliament an unwanted waste of money.
Get it right the first time. Advice in a government-sponsored referendum ad which it seems was ignored. It was only a month ago the announcement was made to ask Queenslanders to agree to a 6-month extension of Parliament to allow time for a review of electoral boundaries, as recommended by Corruption Commissioner Tony Fitzgerald. After yesterday's failed leadership challenge, surviving Premier Micah Hearn changed his mind. The poll, he says, isn't on. And just as well, says North Rockhampton election candidate Lee Neverson.
Quite frankly, thank God we've got the man with the guts who's prepared to save the people the money when it is going to be doomed to failure.
Mr Neverson, who's now gearing up for an election at the end of the year, disagrees Mr Ahern's move is a back-down aimed at appeasing disgruntled backbenchers who didn't want the poll.
I don't think it's too harmful to give your leader a message from time to time. I'm glad to see the message has been given and received.
Central Queensland backbenchers Dennis Hinton and Di McCauley are 2 party members ecstatic about the decision. The 3 agree an election on the present boundaries won't affect Mr Fitzgerald's recommended review. Another person looking forward to an earlier election is Labor's North Rockhampton candidate Robert Schwarten, who says the referendum's been axed because the government knew it would be annihilated. It's another example, he says, of the lack of leadership and unity in the National Party.
Meanwhile, the Premier announced his 3 new cabinet ministers today, and the cards largely fell the way they were tipped. Tony Gilmore, Ewan Fraser and Tony Fitzgerald have been moved into the front line after this week's dramatic resignations. Former Police Minister Russell Cooper will be left to languish on the back bench, joining 2 Central Queensland National Party members. Di McCauley and Dennis Hinton are both new players to the political field. Both are serving their first term on government after the 1985 redistribution and the 1986 selection. On his last visit to Central Queensland, Premier Mike Ahern said he would promote the member for Callide to the Cabinet after the next election. Mrs McCauley says she doesn't mind waiting, and neither does member for Broadsound, Dennis Hinton. Mr Hinton managed to get out of his hospital bed to attend yesterday's spill meeting. This morning he was back in bed and maintaining he was never after a Cabinet posting.
You're quite happy to stay on the backbench? Oh, I'm quite happy to stay on the backbench, there's no doubt about it. But further down the track, when I've had more experience and also when I have cemented my position in this seat, I would be looking for a Cabinet position.
Most commentators agree a Cabinet posting is a great way to shore up electoral support, and Mr Hinton concedes Broadsound is one of the most marginal seats in the state.
The world has been going batty for weeks, and now it's Rockhampton's turn as Batmania strikes. The blockbuster movie will be in Rockhampton for 8 weeks, but already the bat business is booming.
When the sun goes down and the criminals of Gotham come out, Bruce Wayne heads deep below the expanses of Wayne Manor to a high-tech lair called the Batcave. He sheds his day clothes for a suit of a different kind and emerges in the supercharged Batmobile or the sleek Batwing aircraft to fight crime in a totally transformed identity. Batman. If, like me, you first met Batman courtesy of television and not via the comic strip, then the much-hyped movie will come as a surprise. When you meet Batman this way, rather than through Bob Kane's comic strips launched in 1938, you could be forgiven for going batty. To me, Batman is Adam West wearing wrinkled tights with Robin at his side battling it out in Gotham City with a series of cartoonish villains. Tonight, that image will disappear with the premiere of Batman and no Robin. Also gone are the holy moly and leaping lizards catch cries, and in place of the tongue-in-cheek comic, we're introduced to a Batman played by Michael Keaton, who even likes women. Some critics believe the movie should be called Batman and the Joker. The grinning criminal loony Jack Nicholson steals the show with his terrifying presence and sinister plans.
About 200 people are expected to visit Gladstone's College of TAFE by the end of this evening. The college has opened its doors to the public for its annual open day.
The purpose of the open day is to show the college at work, especially to intending students, and to create a general goodwill throughout the community. This afternoon it was Gladstone business people giving the college the once-over. Later tonight, school children from as far as Mount Larkham to Miriamvale will visit. According to TAFE management, colleges now have to sell themselves to the community.
Days are gone when the state government give you a blank cheque. They now give us so much of our budget and tell us to find the rest through our own resources, and we really have to go out to the community now and work for our living. We really have to sell ourselves to the community.
About 500 people are enrolled at the TAFE each semester. Because of the Harbour City's strong industrial base, the range of apprenticeship courses is extensive, from woodworking to computer training.
Sport now, and Gary, I'm sure all Queenslanders are rather disappointed after last night's match.
Certainly are, Bruce, and in fact one person is sitting right here very disappointed with the Broncos' performance, but top marks to Cronulla. They certainly deserved the win. A great game. And after the break in sport, Frenchville retains the soccer Wesley Hall Cup. Frenchville retained the prestigious Wesley Hall Cup when they defeated Narimbra 3-1 at Norbridge Park last night. The game was won in the first half when an inspired Frenchville combination completely dominated proceedings.
Continuing faith in the development of juniors paid dividends for Frenchville coach Bevan Dingley when his side won soccer's most sought-after trophy, the Wesley Hall Cup. In a result which many expected would go the other way, Frenchville proved far too accomplished for their opponents in all facets of the game. Dingley, who admitted to several sleepless nights before the clash, says he's happy with the result.
I expected it to be a hard game, but I was pleased the way the young fellas performed last night. I stuck by them, they stuck by me, and it was really good. They just fired up. They were the two young fellas there, they were the goal scorers, and they just turned it on last night.
The first half It was almost a one-sided event, wasn't it?
Yeah, we were fired up right from the word go. The boys were hyped. They had nothing to lose. Disappointing after CQ League this year, and they've got the ability to play well, and they just turned it on for everyone last night.
After losing the Central Queensland League Grand Final last weekend, Nirimba didn't appear to be playing anywhere near their best football last night.
I was a bit surprised that they never performed. I think they were a bit shattered after Saturday night, but we took full advantage of that.
While the game contained plenty of good passages of football, it did on occasion lend itself to roughhouse tactics. In the post-match excitement, Dingley has shocked club officials with the announcement that he'll be stepping down as coach at the culmination of the present season.
Former Central Queensland long-distance runner Graham Woods has been disqualified from this year's Sydney to Melbourne Westfield run. After finishing in 4th position, Woods has been disqualified after returning a positive test for a banned drug. The test was carried out on the 4th day of the race after allegations from support crews and other runners. The run was held in May. Budding young Central Queensland skipper Noel Ryan will this weekend sail the seas in the Open Regatta as preparation for the national titles later this year. To give his crew a sporting chance in Perth, Noel is seeking sponsorship for new sails.
19-year-old Yeppoon skipper Noel Ryan, Queensland Sportsperson of the Year, has won national and state titles for sailing since 1981. The 1988-89 National Corsair Youth Champion cleaned up this year's Keppel Bay Sailing Club Championships. Ryan plans to continue his winning form with the entrance of his 18-foot Sharpie Risky Business in the Keppel Bay Open Regatta this weekend. Saturday is an invitation race with the Heat Championships to follow on Sunday.
I think we'll have a win. Got to be confident.
Ryan says his ultimate aim is to compete in a sailing event in the Olympics.
I'll try out for the 1992 Olympics, but I don't expect to do well on that. But the ones after that, I should do well.
To get there, partaking in competitions is vital, and when the opportunity arises, the team heads straight for the water. Weekends are essential to the three-man crew. It is the only chance they get to work together, brush up on skills, and resolve any boating problems. Noel recently returned from a seminar on tuning a sail and believes what he has learned will increase their chances of winning.
Actually, we found out this weekend that our sails were too full, and we're sending them back to the sailmakers in Brisbane to get them recut. So they suit more variety of conditions, like from light weather to heavy weather.
Polocrosse isn't exactly a high-profile sport, but the entertaining game, which has aptly been described as playing lacrosse on horseback, is on the move. Up to 6 Central Queensland teams will travel to Wandoan for the Queensland Polocrosse Power Brewing Championships on September the 2nd and 3rd.
Whilst the average sporting enthusiast wouldn't consider polocrosse amongst his favourite pastimes, the Australian-invented game is quickly drawing participants throughout the nation. Local spokesperson Linda Locke says polocrosse suffers from a lack of publicity.
There's over 60 clubs. Most little centres have a club, and unfortunately a lot of people just don't know polocrosse exists.
The game's origins go back to an Australian equestrian competitor in England who decided to embark on the creation of a new game for riding enthusiasts. Although invented in 1938, it is only in the last 10 years that polocrosse has begun to expand. It now has clubs all over the world. To the uneducated, the finer points of the game may cause some confusion, but spokesperson Linda Locke says it's all quite simple.
Horse sport, I guess it's very similar in some people's minds to polo, except instead of using a mallet, we use a racket with a net on, similar to lacrosse, whereby you have to actually pick the ball up and throw it to your number one or goal scorer, who then throws a goal.
The culmination of the polocrosse season will be the state championships at Wandoan. With over 80 teams from around the state, competition is expected to be keen.
Finals fever is not listed in any medical journal as a registered disease, but the annual phenomenon continues to plague Central Queensland residents. Management, staff and patrons of Bartlett's Club Tavern left no doubts as to their allegiance in this weekend's Rugby Union Grand Final. One-eyed Colts supporters gathered to toast the tavern's latest elixir, red beer. After an initial tasting, the heady brew was quickly passed around the feverish crowd. The man behind the football folly, publican Gary Ward, says local business houses should take the opportunity to get behind sporting clubs participating in finals. And finally in sport, the release of a list detailing Australia's top 100 golf courses has certainly sparked a debate over the relative merits of Central Queensland golf courses. In compiling the list, golfing columnist Tom Ramsey has been condemned by the Capricorn International Golf Course for leaving it out on his selection.
Down at the Rockhampton Golf Club, and Secretary-Manager Collie Gill has good reason to smile about Ramsey's latest selection of Australia's prized courses. The columnist has portrayed the Rocky course as a rising star in the golf course stakes. It's been moved up in his estimation from 98 to 96. Rockhampton's #1 course is certainly looking much better these days. More green staff attending the fairways, and a furtive croc in the nearby Murray Lagoon has established notoriety as the club's mascot. Collie Gill christened the croc Cornelius. It's said in Latin to mean the horny one.
He's been active lately, and it's drawing a lot of tourists to our course as well.
Down to the coast, and the folks at the Capricorn International Resort Course are frowning on Ramsey's exclusion of their track in his latest list. The strange thing is that Ramsey has never played the course, and yet he rated it in a top 50 list only 3 months ago.
I find it hard to believe. I just can't believe he's done that. We have a lot of players play here throughout Australia, and we just get great comments on our greens, the whole lot. So I can't see how we cannot be rated in the top 100, and other courses have been.
The resort is planning another much harder track to be complete within 2 years. Resort pros say Ramsey should have a hit and make up his mind once and for all. In fact, the list is full of contradictions, but that's of no concern to Collie Gill.
If we can get to around about in the top 50s, that'll please us very much in the years to come.
And on that note, that winds up our sport for another evening.
Good evening. Well, it's not quite September and already we're experiencing hot, humid weather. In Rockhampton today, we had a maximum of 29 degrees and a minimum of 15. Current temperature is 22 degrees, barometric pressure 1,012 hectopascals and rising. Humidity is 75% and winds are calm. In central Queensland today, the maximum of 31 went to Emerald and the minimum of 9 went to Billawheeler. Our synoptic situation: the remnants of a frontal change lay across the coast near Fraser Island today. This front linked with the trough which extended west of Emerald to the southeast Gulf of Carpentaria. A few showers continued in the warm, humid air mass northeast of the trough and front. A high located over the southern inland Queensland is producing dry, clear weather west of the trough and front. To our cloud map, the next front is moving into South and Central Australia, preceded by a developing band of cloud. No significant rain has so far been reported from this cloud. Forecast for the coast. For the south coast, a shower or two this evening in the far north, fine otherwise, some overnight fogs, mostly light winds and coastal sea breezes. Friday will be very warm with a few showers and local thunderstorms. For the central coast, a few showers this evening, fine on Thursday, some overnight fogs. Humid with mostly light northeast to northwesterly winds, and Friday a few showers. For the central highlands and central west, isolated showers on the central highlands this evening and Thursday afternoon. Light winds tending very warm on Thursday and freshening. A cool southerly change extending to the Longreach area tomorrow night, and Friday a few showers or thunderstorms are expected. Back to the coast with our weather observation from Lady Elliot Island. Winds are from the northwest at 2 knots, seas are calm and no swell. Heron Island can expect winds from north-northwest at 8 knots. Our small ships forecast St Lawrence to Harvey Bay. Variable winds to 10 knots, mainly northeast to northwest. Seas mostly less than 1 metre, isolated showers this evening in northern waters. Our tide time and heights for the Capricorn coast, 3.6 metres at 9:12 a.m. and 4.2 metres at 9:18 p.m. For Rockhampton, 2.6 metres at 11:24 a.m. and 3.2 metres at 11:36 p.m. Our regional forecast: most areas should be fine. Rockhampton is heading for 30 degrees. A shower or two tonight, then fine, though fog tomorrow morning, light winds and a minimum there of 15 degrees. Gladstone, a shower or two tonight and then fine. Light winds tending northeast during the afternoon, a minimum of 17 degrees and a maximum of 28. And to our capital cities forecast: Brisbane will be fine and 23 degrees. Sydney mostly sunny and 22. Canberra will have a few late showers and 15 degrees. Melbourne, showers and 14. Hobart should be fine and 14 degrees. Adelaide can expect a few showers and 15 degrees. Perth will have showers later in the day and 19 degrees, while Alice Springs will be fine and 21 degrees. Darwin also fine, humid weather there and 32 degrees. And that's our Newswatch weather as supplied by the Met Bureau at 5 p.m. today. Roll on summer. Bruce.
I'll second that. Thanks very much, Catherine.
Thank you, Bruce.
Before we go, a look at the main stories today. The state government cancels the October referendum, and a teenager first charged with murder now to face a manslaughter charge after an incident at a Rockhampton hostel. That's Newswatch for this Wednesday. Thank you for joining us, and make tomorrow a winner. Good night.